Okay, hi, welcome. This is the One Bad Mother and One Bad Autistic Ask Me Anything. This is an event brought to you by the One Bad Mother fan group and the One Bad Autistic subgroup. The opinions expressed here are ours alone and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Biz and Teresa, the One Bad Mother podcast, or Maximum Fun. And to begin, hello, I'm Erin. I am one of the motherboard badmins, and we are here to have a little conversation. Today is World Autism Day, and I think we should probably start out by saying who we are and who lives in our house. If you guys want to mention which neurodiversities you have, go for it. I will start. I'm Erin. I live in California wine country. My pronouns are she and her. I live with my lefty and my son and a whole bunch of animals. And I have ADD, and my wife is autistic, and who knows about Minnie? I guess that remains to be seen. Tessa, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I literally just had to write down what you were saying so I don't screw it up.
Oh, it really is not that formal. Let's do this.
No, so my name's Tessa. I am in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My pronouns are they and she, and the people that live in my house is my lefty, who's a British immigrant, and my toddler, Minnie, who's toddler, 2-year-old toddler. I'm a professional web developer, both full-time as a job and also as a side hustle. And I am doing this now.
And you're also an admin for One Bad Autistic.
Oh yeah, that's the important part.
And this was the one, like, your idea, so
yeah.
Let's get where do you?
So I was I got my autism diagnosis last year. Don't know how they missed it, for 30 years. With all these awful introductions.
They're all wonderful and perfect. Okay, who wants to go next?
Right. I guess I'll go.
Okay,
my name is Lisa, and I live in Nebraska. I live with my lefty, and I have 2 minis, 2 and under. And then I have 2 dogs who I love, and then my cat. And I was also late diagnosed last year at 25, and I'm also not sure how they missed it. Yeah.
Laura?
I'll go. Hi, I'm Laura. I'm in Chicago. I live here with my lefty, who's originally from Alabama, Minnie Carson, who's 5, Harper, who's going to be 4 at the end of this month. There we go. And a dog who I have a love-hate relationship with. Pre-momhood, I was a newspaper reporter. Now I'm a love-lit storyteller. I'm also an admin for One Bad Autistic. I am self-diagnosed for about a year. And anytime I tell anyone, their response is basically, oh, no shit. Yeah, duh, of course. It's like, I don't know. I'm not going to go through formal diagnosis because, like, Minnie has many. He has sensory processing disorder, dyspraxia, and speech stuff and O stuff that, like, just seeing his specialist, I tell them and they're like, oh, yeah, for sure. Do you want us to, like, write it for you? And I'm like, no, thanks. Like, I appreciate polite validation. So I talk too much and too long. Get used to it. Nice to be here.
I talk too much too. Okay, who wants to go next?
I can go. I'm not coming onto video because I have had a really long day and I look terrible and I'm just sitting on my couch. I'm Gwen. I'm one of the badmins with Aaron. I live in Bloomington, Indiana with my family. I live with my lefty and a 4-year-old who is a ball of fire and sunshine. I have 2 dogs as well, and I have OCD and a mood disorder and some sensory processing issues. And that's pretty much where I come from, but I'm really interested in hearing more about everything that's going to be said today. I need to learn more.
Hey, Gwen, can I ask a favor of you since
Yeah.
you are, I think, going to stay on mute, you were thinking? Can you do me a favor and look on the Facebook feed of this and check to see if we have any questions coming in, and then pop them into the chat for us so that we can make sure we get those as well? Because we have some questions.
Yes, I could definitely do that.
I think we had some basic questions based on the stuff that Lydia said. So
Cool.
cool. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
All right. And last but not least, Sable, do you want to introduce yourself?
I think they're on the bus.
Oh, okay. So we'll hold off, but we have one more panelist. So great. Okay. Tessa, do you want to start questions, or would you guys rather that I ask some questions and people just sort of answer as we feel we have something to say?
Yeah.
The latter? Okay.
That.
Cool, cool, cool. I am going to start.
Stable says they have no mic.
Okay. Hi. Then we still can get your stuff from the chat. Where's my document? Okay, here we go. I think I'd like to start with what does the world look like or feel like to you? I think one of the things that a lot of neurotypical people have a hard time understanding is the fact that people with autism can find that the sensory input that you're experiencing is different or can be overwhelming, or things that a neurotypical person might not even notice, you might notice or even find to be a lot. So do you want to talk a little bit about that, Tessa?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to raise my hand, but I'm going to.
Raise the hand, talk, whatever.
Yeah,
we'll figure it
out. There was, I guess, a recent example of, so I do have some minor hearing loss and some auditory processing challenges. So for most of my life, it just felt like there's something that you know is not happening, like you're missing out on something, like there's so much out there in the world, but then you just kind of chug on, you're like, well, I guess that's just what it's supposed to be. You never knew that there was something more. And then it was like only recently did I start asking to watch movies and TVs with closed captions, and like, you know, I'm reading and I'm like, oh shit, that person's name is Judo, not Juno. Or like you just catch so much more context and you're like, is this how normal people experience movies? Like, is this the world normally when that happens? So I think that's just a kind of like a little bit of a fog that's been lifted for me personally, is just kind of see that that there's more to movies specifically than just listening and watching what's happening. You're actually, I'm able to get more context and understand more of what's going on when I can also read, because I'm faster at processing when I'm reading something than I am when listening with something.
Yeah, I will kind of like, I'll kind of agree with like when other people are like talking, sometimes I have a hard time, especially when I'm nervous, kind of understanding, like it kind of all jumbles. But at the same time, my hearing is also hypersensitive. Like I'll hear like the water run into the ice maker from the basement, or like I'll hear the smallest little noises, and I'm constantly asking people around me, did you hear that? And they're like, what are you talking about? So it's weird. It's like I can hear too well, but I don't process it well, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense to me.
It totally makes sense to me too. My wife
Yeah.
also has the exact same, where she says that processing is different from being able to hear. And Laura, you were
For me, I have sensory processing disorder and some auditory stuff too. And like Lisa said, everything has a sound. Like the TV, I'm not watching a TV show right now. It's just the background TV, but I can hear like the little electrical buzz or the lights or whatever. And I actually posted about this in One Bad Autistic a couple weeks ago. I am fully vaccinated, and I went out to dinner by myself on a patio, and there was a couple 6 feet away or more, and they were scraping their forks on their plates as they were eating. And I was just like, this is torture. I can't do it. Like, I need to get the waitress to move me. Oh my God. And also, I don't know if anybody else who has autism as a parent has this, but having loud mini and micros is so hard, because like kids don't know indoor voice at 3 and 5. So everything is like up here, and I'm just like, I need like, I've noticed that if I put on music, like sometimes they're a little bit quieter. So there's a lot of Sinatra going on around here, like, because at least like they'll listen to that and not scream in my face. But that could also just be kids. But yeah, the world is louder and brighter and more, which can sometimes be a good thing, because you notice a lot of like smaller things that neurotypicals don't notice. Like, at least for me, like, oh, wow, those flowers are really yellow or whatever. And people are like, whatever, it's a flower. But for me, ooh, but at the same time, things are really loud and really in your face. Yeah, see, I'm talking too much.
Sable's writing in chat, oh man, I feel ya on having a loud mini, and fork scraping sucks. I hope I
Yes.
emphasized that right.
You totally did. Good job.
Yeah, my wife has the, she calls it her superhuman hearing. And it can be very difficult for her. But also, I remember a couple of Halloweens ago, Minnie was sneaking a piece of candy after Halloween, and she heard it like across the house. She heard the little crinkle of the wrapper, and she knew, because, but like I couldn't hear that. And I have good hearing, whatever that means. But yeah, she was able to hear because she has the ability to hear more things than I have the ability to hear. Okay. Another thing I wanted to ask is, what is a misconception or stereotype about autism that you guys would like to clear up, or that you've encountered that you find frustrating? Go for it, Laura.
So in portrayals, you get a lot of like, TV, pop culture, whatever, that autistic people are not emotional, that they're just, I'm gonna go hide in the bedroom now. Excuse me 1 second, Lefty's up here. Just, yeah, not emotional, can't feel or read the same level of love or care or whatever as somebody else has, because we're just robotic and we can't feel it. And that really pisses me off, because I am like a super sensitive person. Like, I think just a couple days ago, on the sherbet at the grocery store, I passed this drink my grandpa liked, and like started in the grocery store. People might not do, but I did, because I felt really upset about it, really stressed about it. And yeah, it's a misconception for me, at least.
Yeah, I think to build on that, it's a pattern in my life where people have told me, Tessa, you're a cold-hearted, or you're too robotic. That actually came up in an employee review where they have like the sections for your employee reviews. There's like, your work ethic, all this other stuff, and then the communication, 2 stars because my reports are too robotic. Like, I'm a web developer. What do you want from me? So one of my responses to the way that I responded to that feedback was like, well, how about if I put emojis in my emails? And so I started doing that. I'll be like, okay, and like I didn't really change much of how I wrote it. I would just write my report and then put a smiley face at the end. They'd be like, all right, I think that did it. That means I'm happy and it makes it good. And of course, my lefty's just like, that's what a robot would do. Like that's so like that's a common joke in our house, and I'm 100% living it. Where I'm like, I'm a robot or I'm an alien, like trying to learn how to be human, because just a lot of these things that apparently are natural in communication, like all these other levels, like I don't get them. Like I miss out. I don't know how to communicate outward of these things, and I also don't know how to receive them. And I find the receiving part a blessing, because people will get really mad and texting at me, and I'm like, I didn't even realize you were mad until you made a mad emoji, I guess, because it's you guys are the robots. When I read what you type, it's neutral to me. There's no tone, so you're the robots, not me. Oh, you're muted, Erin.
Sorry. I wonder also if people tone police you based on perceiving you as feminine. Okay, I have a couple in here that have come in the comments for our Facebook broadcast. And the first one is related to what we were saying before, that there's a difference between the amount that you process versus the amount that you hear. And the question is, when you say processing is different from what you hear, do you have any knowledge of how this might impact a small child, for if this is true for them too?
I think it could be. I think because the way that it processes, it's not, I can't think of the words exactly, but repeat yourself, rephrase it, keep telling them politely, it just in different ways. I think days ago, I don't have a perception of time. I think, oh no, I'm losing my thought.
I wonder, just as a question, as a parent who has watched kids on various places on the neurodiversity spectrum, do you think that if you see a kid who is having more auditory input than they can process, is there a way to manage that? Can you would taking them into a quieter place to speak to them be helpful?
Oh yeah.
Or something like that, like trying to control the amount of input that you give them?
Yeah.
I'm just,
Yeah.
so,
oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
Okay. Many sensory processors, and he is focused on something, whether it is an iPad game or a television show. He's got like a laser, and he can only hear that. He can only see that ad. So it's something. I need to tell him something. I get like right here, look him in the eye and be like, Harrison, we need to do this. In 5 minutes, we need to do this. Like, it's really important for us to physically get on his level.
Got it. I don't know if I haven't mentioned this in this broadcast, but my wife and I've known her since I was 10. And I remember when we were children, that if she got overwhelmed, she would pull her hoodie over her head and put on sunglasses. And in junior high school, I thought that was her being really cool. And now, as an adult who understands both of our neurodiversities better than I did at puberty age, pre-puberty. Anyway, I realized that that was a way, and even now as an adult, that is a way that she controls the amount of sensory input that she gets. Visually, she wears earplugs and uses noise canceling headphones. And that actually leads into my next question. I mentioned on our post in One Bad Mother that because people have different amounts of sensory processing capacity at different times based on what you have coming in, that there are different tools you might use to manage that. And one of the things that was mentioned was stimming, and then there were other things mentioned. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about ways that you manage the input that you get?
Well, one is I'm a touch person. I don't know if you're familiar with like the love languages, but touch is my love language, and I like soft blankets, and that's why I have a blanket right here, because like I play with it, I touch it, like this is helping me not be so anxious for this. Exactly. I don't remember what the question was.
Well, is how do you manage the amount of input that you get? So I mentioned that my wife wears noise canceling headphones. She wears earplugs sometimes, not just in loud places, but when our family is too much. You may have noticed I'm a talker, and so is Minnie, and that can be a lot. And so sometimes my wife will wear earplugs in the house just because the noise level in the house is too much for her.
Yeah, I do that also. So I stay home with my two little kids, and one is 9 months and one is 2.5. So it's really it's loud. And I am not a touch person. I don't like to be touched. I don't like to touch sticky, dirty, messy. I don't like it. And so I spend a lot of time in my headphones. Sometimes I do have to like go to a different room. I try to like stay calm, but sometimes, I have to go wash my hands, or I do notice, like, I guess I never picked up on it as like a younger kid. But I do notice that I do like a lot of rocking or like finger tapping, especially when I'm nervous or overwhelmed.
And we have Sable says noise canceling headphones rock. And I think this is from before, but Jennifer says, when my Minnie is upset, we use an ASL sign. He picked the word. Using words just doesn't work as well. The visual helps him to self-regulate. And I think that was related to the amount of input.
Mario.
Yes.
I have the physical stims. I'll either like tap my thigh or shake my foot. I've done that since I was a little kid, just when things get too loud, too stressful. Like I remember as a kid, my mom telling me to stop, and even now, like if I am a house, she'll do it, and I'm like, oh please, let's like, and I just move to a different couch or chair and keep doing it, because telling someone to stop stimming is not helpful.
No, it's not. And I feel like it's an important thing to know. I know that when I'm having an intense conversation with my wife, like when we've talked about like big feeling stuff, so she has a tendency to use her hands and stim this way, and it is a way of self-regulating that allows her to manage the intensity of what she is experiencing. And so I think that it's really important to talk about that as a tool, because stop stimming maybe stop helping yourself in context.
Yeah.
And I think that is a message that people need to be aware that they're giving when they say, stop doing that, stop flapping your hands, stop squeezing that, stop kicking that. it may be also asking the person to stop helping themselves. And people should know that that's the question that they're asking.
Everybody stims. I mean, even my
Yeah, me isn't,
non-autistic
like I said,
husbands will pace around while on the phone. You know, people will twirl their hair or tap their foot when they're nervous. Everybody stims. And it's just that autistic people have a lot more, you know, non-socially acceptable sims. You know?
yeah, Minnie is not formally diagnosed yet, but because he's only 5 there. But he will often like clear his throat. He'll be like 20 times, or he'll hum. He definitely has some auditory sensory stims too that help him when he's kind of overwhelmed, which happens a lot when you're a little kid, neurotypical or not.
Yeah. Kelly asks, how can we help our curious kiddos appropriately ask questions of other kids who might be neurodiverse about their needs?
Can you rephrase?
And where are all these planets going?
How can we help our curious kids appropriately ask questions of their friends who might be neurodiverse about their needs? So if a neurotypical kid wants to ask a neurodiverse friend about themselves or about their needs, what's a good way for them to ask?
Bluntly.
That's
like,
important.
beating around the bush does not help me at all. Like, if you hint at what you want to know, I won't pick it up till later. And then I'll feel really stupid. So if you want to know, I would rather just be asked outright, even if that's like rude to neurotypical people. It's just how I work.
I would imagine that it's even harder for kids to navigate that sort of hidden language.
There was a fun language barrier between me and my British lefty. He would always phrase things as a question because that's polite. So he'd be like, hey, could you wash the dishes? And I'd be like, no, I don't feel like it. Maybe like, you know, later. And he'd be like, that was kind of me telling you, but like I didn't catch on that. I thought because it was a question, I had the option to say no, but it's just him being polite. So that's lost on me. I'm like, oh, he's like, just tell me you want me to do the dishes and then I'll get up and do them. Like I don't have a problem with you asking me or telling me. I just didn't catch that that's what it was.
That's really important. I'm glad you said that, because I think that a lot of people are programmed that the only way to ask something is in the way that they've been taught as polite. But if you need to communicate with another person, you also need to speak the same language that they speak. You know, I speak German, but I moved to Japan and I didn't speak Japanese. And so as earnest and polite as anybody was asking me something in Japanese, I still didn't speak Japanese, and so I was still not helpful to them.
How do you win?
Okay.
I think depending on age, just straight up ask. Like if somebody asked Harrison, why are you humming, or how does it make you feel? Like he would just be like, oh, it makes me feel nice, or it makes me, you know, calm down. Or I wouldn't say that being 5, but just ask. In terms of missing things, like Tessa said, with missing the question, I don't know if this is typical for everyone else, but for me, I missed a lot of pop culture growing up. It's just like references that I don't get that Lefty makes all the time. And like at this point, I just don't care. Like movies or music or whatever. I'm like, oh no, I don't know who that is, as I didn't watch that. Like, and to some other people, it's funny, but to me, it's just like, oh well, I read books. Like I know.
Shauna, I see yours, but I have one I'm going to ask right before it that came in. What is something that you like about being autistic?
Well, I had to first figure out that it was autism that I liked. Because at first I just thought I was like, oh, this is like a gift, and then like, oh wait, hyper focus. It's part of cognitive flexibility, and it in task shifting. Basically, in the brain, it is your inability to, well, you're supposed to be able to go from one task to another and back and forth. And
Transitions.
I'm not good at that. Not many autistic people are good at that. So I could be, say, doom scrolling on my phone, and somebody starts coming over to me to talk to me. I'll just be like, what do you want? The glare. Now I just forget what I was saying. Oh, what do I like?
Right, but so when you're using the
so
hyper focus on
Yeah.
what you want to be doing or what
So,
you want to be
yes.
productive with.
I can do that for work. I can sit down, do web development work for 8 hours straight, like not eating, not going to the bathroom, and I'm very, very productive, because like I don't get distracted that easily because I can't. I'm literally, the whole world's gone and I'm hyper focused in this thing. So that is, I feel like, is a gift because as an employee compared to my coworkers, I feel like what they could do. I don't want to throw them under the bus.
Right, but
like,
you're able to be very productive
I'm able
for
to
a
be very
sustained
productive.
time. That's a
Yeah.
positive
And
thing.
it's also not great because sometimes you forget to go to the bathroom and then you're bursting by the end of the day. But or you don't realize you're hungry, like you never ate. I actually missed lunch today because I just didn't feel any hunger signals. Didn't hear any hunger signals. Just forgot.
Anybody else?
What do you like about autism? That was the question.
I like the attention to detail. Like, so with the high level of like auditory, like I can't, so I can hyper focus, but it's a little bit different for me where I can get disrupted, but it makes me really like mad and irritable. But my attention to detail, like there's not a lot that I don't notice. And with it comes like my memory is very, very good. And that has served me well a lot.
Great.
For me,
oh, sorry, Laura, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no. Do you just want to talk? Go ahead. Like I can wait.
No, go ahead and answer.
For me, special interests are kind of fun. Tessa knows this. In the last year of the pandemic, I've gotten very into cemeteries in my community, seeking out what different gravestones mean and historical people and where they're buried, stuff like that. And we still go, it would get cold, but in the spring last year and all through the summer, we'd hit up a different cemetery every single weekend. And so Harrison was talking to his little friends at school. They'd be like, oh, what'd you do at the weekend with your family? And then some of the kids would be like, I baked keys, or I saw grandma. And Harrison would be like, we went to the cemetery. And his teachers in the levy were fine, but I thought they were interested. I misread there. Oh, that's cool. And like something you say to be polite. They're interested. So I emailed the teachers like 6 different books that I'd read about Chicago cemeteries and where they could go to take their kids, and left was like now you're a weird cemetery mom. Like, not what you're supposed to do. But to me, I was just like, oh, they want to know. This is cool. They didn't, but I thought they did.
I love that.
Yeah, that's just one of them.
I have more to add now that you reminded me. So I live in Pittsburgh, and we are a big American football town. We're Pittsburgh Steelers, and my lefty is not from Pittsburgh. He loves the New York Giants, and we have this hat, the New York Giants hat, that I was just wearing on a cold day. And I go into this cafe and this guy comes out, "Oh, nice hat." And I'm like, "Yeah, thanks." He's like, "I was kidding." I'm like, "Oh." Like, this was like 2 years ago. We're both adults, and like, what the heck? But I think that's, for me, I'm just like, well, screw you. Like, I was happy. Like, that was great. Thanks for the compliment. Like, I took it as a compliment because I completely missed out on that tone. So, like, not being able to read people's tone, I think, is a blessing most of the time, because there's a lot of snarky people in the world.
Yeah, missing sarcasm can be both a curse and a blessing. In my family, we sometimes talk about sarcasm being really common in families with alcoholics. And I am from a family of alcoholics. And so when I first was with my wife, I was a lot more sarcastic. I think that it's been helpful to me to stop being so snarky, because it's not an effective way to communicate in my house. But yeah, and like that was a blessing for me about my wife's autism, to not have that be helpful. I have hand. Okay, Shauna asked, how can I help my toddler Minnie who does not communicate verbally when it comes to necessary touch? Right, nonverbal toddler does not needs to understand the necessary touch. He does not like touch, and in fact, he reacts like he is in pain when I try to wash his hair, for example, she says. So are there ways that might be more effective to communicate about necessary touch? Do you guys have any ideas?
I mean, just from the point of view from a parent, I just tell my child there's a few non-negotiables, and one of them is like hygiene and safety. But it takes a lot of, like, I think they're a lot logical than we believe, and I will rephrase like 6 or 7 times, like, "Hey, like, let's wash your hands. Let's go upstairs to wash your hands. Can we wash your hands now?" Teeth brushing was a pretty recent battle that, I say battle, she didn't want to do it. I wanted her to do it, but now she does it. That we had to work with, and it was about making it fun, making it something that she wanted to do, and it wasn't about forcing. It was about making them want to care about it, and just making it interesting. So we got a whole new toothbrush. She picked out the toothbrush. We had 3 options. Now she stands on the toilet and will do the things herself. I have my brush. She'll sometimes brush my teeth, and it's not done great. She's 2, so she's not very good at brushing her teeth, but she does it, and she's happy when she does it now. And so that's what's going to build it into a habit, and that's how she's going to grow up with a good habit someday. One day she will get better at it, and it will matter how well she does it. But I think, for now we're doing well with that. If it's hand washing specifically,
It's hair washing.
Oh, hair washing. Yeah, I hate getting my hair wet. I wash my hair like once every 4 days, if that. And that's because of temperature and the feeling, and because I'm such a touch person. I get in the shower, I'm cold and I'm wet, and then it's hot, and then sometimes it's too hot, and then you get out and you're cold and you're wet, and it's just, and you gotta sometimes, like, it's a sensory nightmare to get wet and dry and air dry, and then your skin feels funny while you're trying to dry. Like, it's, I hate it. Like, I feel this kid so much. Like, I don't want to get my hair washed. So it's so hard.
Do you find baths less upsetting than showers?
Or
no?
I mean, now that I'm an adult, I don't like baths because I don't know what to do.
Right.
Just like, this is just to get clean, get in, get out, get done. Like, that's it. I don't take a shower to enjoy it. I don't take a bath to enjoy it. And I know a lot of people do, and that's supposed to be like the mom thing where you're sitting in the tub with wine. Like, I don't do either of those things.
Nope, me either.
So,
I also have a hard time with hair washing. For me, it's not so much like I like the heat. Like, once I get in the shower, I'm okay. I don't like the water to get on my face.
Mm-mm.
Like if it gets on my face, that's when I'm gonna start kind of
I don't
panicking a
wash
little
my
bit.
face in the shower either.
See, I do, but like if you watched me do it, you would probably be like, what are you doing?
I'm also a leg washer in the shower, and that's apparently pretty weird.
So yeah,
Really?
yeah, it's I think making it fun and helping, you know, you know, making it like a habit, like it's something that has to happen, but then also, you know, gosh, I don't know where I was going with this. It's gone.
Well, Tessa, you mentioned that your toddler sometimes brushes your teeth. I wonder, do you guys think that allowing the child to have some control over it? Like, I know when I was a kid, my mom would let me use a measuring cup to wet my own hair, and I had some control. That also might be, because I have ADD, I get distracted so easily. And it may have just been her way of helping to keep me engaged in the task. I need a podcast to be able to take a shower because I get bored too fast and I forget to do stuff. Like, for me, it's not a sensory thing, but I wonder if control or having some agency in it might be helpful. Does that help with sensory input?
I think control
Yeah.
and expectations.
For me,
Sorry, go ahead.
I hate baths too. I hate showers too. So does May. May used to scream. He's 5 now, getting in a bath or a shower. So what I did was I introduced all sensory stuff that he could focus on. Wasn't just getting his hair washed in the shower or the bathtub. I know she's not here, but I need to give credit for it because she's the this. Heather knows who isn't here tonight. Was just part of One Bad Autistic. Introduced me to the shower orange, where you take a shower and you feel an orange, and you eat the orange while you're in the shower. And it is this great experience. For many, it's popsicles. So he eats his popsicle, and I lean back and wash his hair, rinse his hair with a little cup. He just gets the popsicle. Or you have, as this all like ago, they have baths that you can get, or keto that is also a big thing for both my kids is if they let me wash their hair or brush their teeth or wash their body, they can do it. So we went out and like special washcloths that they got to have themselves that they can only use up, and a special toothbrush and special sparkly toothpaste and all this stuff, like making extra just adding extra stuff to it. But they're okay with sugar. Popsicle is a big sell.
That sounds genius.
And
like,
I think
that is a brilliant idea.
Yeah. And I think the advice here is good for all kids, honestly, not just autistic kids.
I think a lot of things that are good for autistic kids are good for all kids. Dorothy asks, I find myself wanting to explain what my son is like when connecting with other parents in an effort to find him friends who are like him. But it feels like the language I have is wrong. And this relates to something that you guys have already mentioned about functioning labels. And she says, quote, high functioning for, it feels like the language I have is wrong. High functioning, for example, instead I have begun to say 2E autistic son. Is that okay? Are there other good ways? Is this something I should actually not be trying to do? And what she's saying, should she not be trying to find similar autistic kids for her son? I think she's wondering two things, like what language to use if she should be, and whether she should be at all trying to find other autistic kids who are experiencing similar impacts or similar abilities.
So I want to answer your second question first.
Can you ask her how old Minnie is? Because that's good.
Oh, that's important too.
Yeah, Dorothy, you're in our comments on the Facebook. Will you please let us know how old your Minnie is, and we'll move it over here as soon as we can.
And I think to answer that second question first, yes, help them find other autistic kids, because I think one of the things that that just, you feel, you don't really feel a sense of belonging when you're only surrounded by people that can't understand you a lot, and you have trouble communicating with them, and it's, no wonder they call it the communication disorder. But I find that when I'm talking to other autistic people, like, a couple weeks ago, we had like a little video room chat thing, and we're just talking, and like, it's actually like no misunderstandings. It didn't feel like a communication disorder when I'm talking to other autistic people. So I think, autism's not just communication, because we communicate with each other just fine. It's how other people see autistic people and how we communicate with them. And I think, having friends that are also communicating the same way as you, it's valuable. I think that's something that's important to have in your life, and I do feel like a sense of closeness to Laura because we chat all the time. I think it's all the time. I actually don't know how often we chat because I don't have a sense of time. Feels like that's all the time to me.
Dorothy says that her mini is 6.
Okay, you want to take the second question?
Okay. Given that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I can't hear it. I have one ear.
Oh, given that he or she is 6, I would definitely reach out to other parents, maybe at school, or if they're in OT or PT. Like, I used to go up to other parents in the waiting room when we were at Harrison's PT and OT sessions and just be like, oh, hey, we're here for this. What are you here for? Like, and just start chatting and then ask if they want to go to the park or whatever. For me, as a kid, I did not know I was autistic. I'm 35. I didn't know till I was 34. And I got so stressed out doing lunch in lunchrooms in elementary and high school that I would go eat in the library because I know nobody would talk to me and nobody would ask me questions about stuff I didn't know about. If I had had autistic friends and people to talk to that experienced the world the way I did, it would have made a world of difference. Like, I guarantee in the last year and a half, pretty much the only OBM friends I've made are either autistics themselves or moms of autistic kids, where I'm like, oh my God, you get me. You have this too. This is wonderful. So yes, definitely bring it up, be loud about it. Don't make he or she or they, whatever you don't know what the pronoun is, feel like it's something to be quiet about. Because I think for a lot of us as autistic adults, we had to be quiet about it for way too long. And it didn't help us any to have to, like, we're getting emotional about this, to like sit down and shut up about it. Didn't help us at all there. Some of us are now discovering it in the workplace or in our relationships or what have you, and having to navigate it on our own, except for our other friends on the internet. Yeah, thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Alex asked, and I feel like we might need additional context, Alex, just in case you were asking this more narrowly to somebody about, but asking directly to the group. Do you use AAC? And for those who are not aware, that's augmentative and alternative communication, which is common usage for children and adults who have speech or language problems.
So
I do not.
Go ahead.
I do not. He did for a while. He used flashcards and a couple different iPad apps because he was not verbal till he was out 3, but now he's in speech therapy, and he does. He still has echolalia, so like if he says one thing, he will say it a lot. He will ask the thing in the thousands, but we're not currently using it. I did find it very helpful.
Okay, we have a couple of questions in, but we also have some other ones that came in before this happened. We had people send questions ahead of time, so I want to make sure we get those as well. Somebody asked, I know eye contact can be difficult, but is it bothersome to be looked at? Can you pinpoint what it is that is difficult?
So I think when people look at me, I guess because I'm so, I notice everything, or I hear, or I see everything, it feels almost too personal a lot of the time. And I think I'm able to process better when I don't feel like I'm under scrutiny almost.
That makes sense.
I think for me, it's about it's a weird like mishmash of things. When somebody is looking at me, that means in my mind I'm thinking you want something from me right now, and I have according to my fancy piece of paper, I have a measurably slower processing speed than the average person. So for me to think very fast to get you the information that you want right now, this second, I'm now all of a sudden flustered and trying to, quell down that anxiety to then also think through, this whole task shifting thing, like what is the information you want? Thinking, trying to form it into words, and like this whole process to get it out into from thoughts to language in some communicative way. And I think, just it's just like added pressure, like you want it right now. So I think, back to old X's question with the AAC, I think that's very helpful. If your kid needs to have some kind of alternative way of speaking, it's not pressure. Like I love, Facebook and texting and emails because nobody's looking at me. And we kind of have that expectation where this information is not instant. So I feel like I can sit, I can think, and if I didn't get it right, I can backspace it before I send it to you. And it's not just verbal garbage.
That ability to edit really does make a difference. Yep.
For me, it's just like an automatically stressful situation. If you're looking at me like, okay, this is obviously going to be some sort of serious conversation. You're staring at me. I do much better if like I'm sitting side by side with a person. Like even with D, I can talk much more seriously on a car ride than I can over the dinner table. Like at dinner, it'll be like, so how was your day? This is the question you're supposed to ask at dinner. Whereas like in the car ride, I can be like, oh, tell me this about when you were a kid, and ask a question that's going to lead to more of an answer and more conversation, and might actually be like more serious emotionally, but not as stressful.
Got it. I accidentally scrolled away from where I was on my list, and now I'm all lost, feeling under pressure.
You feel like us.
I always. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Speaking of my lefty, hi.
Bye.
No, thank you. This says, this is from, I think, Heather. Oh, I did not connect the name. It says, my son was diagnosed at 20 months. He's 5 now and in pre-K. Do you want to share experiences, feelings, or thoughts about general education, special education, or a combination of both at the early elementary level? Because her son is now 5. Oh, and she also says that he has a neurotypical twin, and how can she help his brother understand their differences?
Oh boy. Okay. I'm just gonna jump in as I guess resident IEP mom. Harrison had an individualized education plan at school since literally the day before he turned 3. We went and did all the screenings, and they were like, "Yep, he's nonverbal. You're getting services." So we get PT, OT, and speech, and a social skills class at school, and it has been amazing. My son went from nonverbal to 500 words in about 2 years. He's doing great PT and OT, and just the support from his special education team. I don't know if it is like this everywhere, but like they know about me. Like in a conversation, I said, "Oh yeah, I'm autistic," and they, "Oh yeah," and like just started chatting with me like that was fun information. So it's been really helpful to have the extra support. I wish I would have had it as a kid. My mother was very against anything that did not make me normal. That's air quotes if you could see them in school. I have cerebral palsy and some other physical disabilities, and there was nothing provided for me at school. So if anything is offered, I would take it from a PT/OT perspective, obviously not an ABA perspective, but all of the good therapies that are offered, take those. And I would just explain to your neurotypical twin that other mini, autistic mini, sees things, the world a little bit different way. The world might be louder to him or her, more coupled to him or her, or they might need more relaxed time or more story time or whatever. And it's not bad or wrong, it's just different.
I think it's also worth saying just slow down. I think, we get caught up in a very fast paced world that, I'm an over explainer. So I over explain a lot. And I sometimes rephrase these things like 5 or 6 times, and people are like, why are you still talking? Um, but at the same time, I also like it when people over explain to me because it takes me a few times to catch on if I don't get it right away. And a lot of the times growing up, I've realized people would have this reaction, and it kind of taught me that nobody wants to repeat themselves a bunch of times. So I went through life pretending that I'd understand what people were saying a lot. They'll be like, they'll say it once or twice, and I didn't want to make them mad. I wanted to be the good compliant child. So I'll be like, yeah, I get it. And I didn't. And I would just slide on through pretending like I did. And I think it's helpful, again, with other autistic people when they also are over explainers sometimes. They'll offer up that information 5 or 6 times. I don't need to ask. So like it's not just that our form of communication is valid, it becomes the default when we talk to each other. And I think that goes back to the other question where why is it important to have other autistic friends? Because it feels natural, I guess, in that way.
That kind of leads into, there are two things I saw. One is what do you wish the world was better about for autistic people, and what has made you feel seen and supported? And I feel like those are kind of connected. What can we do better? What do we do well? What has someone done well for you? Anyone want to answer any part of that? You don't have to answer all of it.
So I was at the doctor's office. I don't know, everything's always a few days ago to me.
Sure.
I was at the doctor's office, and the demeanor changed when they looked at my chart and they saw ASD right there in the chart. And they weren't rushing anymore. And I think it's just because like maybe their training is just slow down, just, and I don't mean to say like talk slow in a condescending way. I just mean like, some people are naturally fast talkers, and I have a hard time picking up their words. With the challenges that I have with auditory processing, it is sometimes what I hear is just gobbledygook. sometimes I miss a word or I don't know what a word is, or maybe I've only read the word so I didn't know it was pronounced that way. So now I'm stuck on how I've ever heard that word before. Like I've heard the word dovetail used 3 times in the last week, and that's strange to me because I've never heard it like any other times in my life, and all of a sudden here it is. And now I'm getting off topic, but I just just slow down, I think, is where I was going. Yeah,
I think that's valid. Laura, did you want to say something?
I'm trying to figure out how to answer this question. I guess
Don't mean to put you on the
posted
spot.
about my personal page. Oh no. Again, like Tessa, I have time blindness. So it was a few days ago. Could have been like 6 months ago. I don't know. But it was a story, a meme about a little girl at a park. And a little boy was standing there, stimming, just spinning around. And her mother was like, now be gentle with him, like be careful. And she goes, oh, I know. I saw this on Sesame Street. And she was referring to Julia, the autistic Muppet, who I love, who makes me so, because that is a thing that my kids are seeing as normal and regular, just like Elmo or Cookie Monster or what have you. And Daniel Tiger is being an autistic character too. And I think that's really important because with all stuff, okay, maybe this is just my own family. I don't know if it's necessarily everywhere, but like with autistics don't understand pop culture, or autistics don't get references, blah, 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 blah. Again, that could just be me. I don't get any of the references. But now, like, making us the references, making us part of pop culture is a big deal. So that is going very well for me. And I also think having autistic actors and actresses and performer people play autistic roles is a big deal.
And it's just as what Laura was saying.
Like there was that whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, we heard it wasn't it 30 years ago it was bad to be nerd or bad to be a geek, and now look at all these Marvel movies. Hello, yeah. Maybe autism's the next big movie. Yeah. No, it's not. That's what am I saying?
I think there's also a difference between seeing an autistic character like one more Muppet on Sesame Street that's part of a community, rather than, I think, and I don't think this is unique to autism, I think that a lot of disability representation on television, at least when I was a kid, because I'm in my 40s, was like as a novelty or inspiration porn, and not just as like, these are people who are part of our community that we just interact with because, so-and-so lives next door, not because like, this is a thing.
Thinking about again, it's a tangent, but the inspiration porn thing a little bit, because I was a medical kid with a lot of issues, and I was trotted out at a lot of hospital fundraisers and therapy set openings and things like that, to be like, oh, look, ta-da, this girl is in school and she's on her grade school basketball team, and look at all these wonderful things she did. And like, I'm not going to do that to my kid. I would not recommend doing that to your kid. Like, don't miss a symbol of something unless we ask. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's something that I'm still wrestling with personally.
That makes sense. Sorry, I still am not good at this scrolling back and skipping back and forth. This may be my ADD, and it may just be something that I'm not good at. Oh, I wanted to mention something here, just because I put it in my main post the other day, and I saw something, a question that I saw a question about like, how did you become autistic? And I thought about whether I should ask this question or not, because when someone has asked me, how did you get ADD? It has bothered me. And I realized that it related to what I said in my post the other day about don't treat autism as something to be cured or fixed or taken out of people. And a big part of that for me is I wouldn't want you to take away my ADD because I don't know where I stop and ADD starts. And I wouldn't want you to take away my being queer. And I wouldn't want to take away someone being autistic because it might change who they are. But I wonder if you have experienced people talking to you about autism as a thing rather than an identity. Like, let me cure you of this. And I think that some of the holistic-led organizations related to autism have a tendency to use that sort of language. And I'm wondering, how can we talk to people who use that language and don't know better? And what are your thoughts about that?
That one really strikes a chord because, so I guess, you know, like none of us just like became autistic as adults. We've always been that way, and maybe just recently found out the word to describe what we are, I guess. But I've had a few run-ins with people because once I got my like diagnosis, I decided I wasn't gonna hide it. I didn't want an excuse to continue masking myself or being someone different. And I've had a few run-ins with some people, specifically a doctor of mine, and then in a parenting group I was a part of, there was a ABA therapist who really like came at me for speaking out for autistic people. And I think with the whole idea of communicating, like, how do I want to phrase this? So we don't need a cure, and a lot of us don't want one. And I think something that has to be remembered is the autistic perspective is one that needs to be listened to rather than just talked over. I feel like it's really easy for people to just tell us to sit down and be quiet and, you know, this is how it's going to be. But I think if people really like listened and didn't insist that we behaved any way other than ourselves, it would be more productive.
So earlier today,
Yeah.
I read an article. It's kind of an old article. It was old news, but apparently Google was partnering up with the dreaded hate group Autism Speaks, and they're actually like working on a project to sequence your genomes and try to literally pin down what about your DNA is autistic, what causes autism. And I'll be honest, I kind of got a bit nauseous when I was reading that article because I'm just kind of thinking like it's a bit close to eugenics. And and that just really upset me.
Yeah, that's valid. Laura, were you just about to say something too?
Yeah. I have a real problem with. I mean, this is gonna get emotional for me too. My own lefty doesn't believe me. He goes, "Wow, you just think that because you're friends with it, and like you're too social and you're too interested in things." And I'm like, I finally was like, "Look, like I'm not gonna defend my own diagnosis to you." Like, he did the same thing when I came out as bisexual. Like, wanted me to defend it for ages, and he's a great guy most of the time. He just doesn't. comes from a very small town, very conservative background, just didn't grow up with anybody different than his sort of background. I don't think we would do that with, oh, I don't want my baby to have brown eyes. How do I take brown eyes out? Oh, I don't want my baby to have curly hair. How do I get curly hair out? It's just another thing about us. Like I don't say it first. I say mom first. Like maybe in some circles do say it first, but it isn't this thing to be ashamed of or quiet about or upset with. And this isn't a story from being autistic because I didn't know that I have cerebral palsy. And I remember being like 7 and everybody can hear the voice. I have one working word. I'm not sick. There's no COVID in the house. It's just the way I sound. I remember talking to another little girl in gym class about like what cerebral palsy was and why I couldn't run, things like that. And her only response was, oh my God, can you catch it? And that is sort of how I feel when I bring up autism. People are like, oh, like that's a scary thing. Like we don't want to talk about that. So it's really important to have spaces like this and conversations with this. And even if you're neurotypical yourself, be friends with other autistic adults. Understand how we process the world, because it might change the way you process the world. And that might be cool for you too. Like, and like,
I agree. Sorry, I am regretting wearing mascara today. Which this sort of leads me to the next question that I wanted to ask. Somebody said, how do I equip my child to live in this world when I don't have that life experience of autism?
Find people who do.
I think that also ties back to how the activism, how community has changed to be community first. And this is true of a lot of types of activism, but disability rights, I think, in a lot of ways has really shifted. I know that ASAN does nothing about us without us as their slogan, making sure that autistic voices are represented in autistic activism. And if you have an autistic child and you yourself are not autistic, make sure that they have autistic voices in their life that they can see and listen to and connect to, and people. There's one more thing and I can't find it. Oh, 2 more things. Do you think sharing stuff on social media matters?
Like sharing things about autism, or like, can you explain a little more?
That was the only phrase that I had, and I would assume that it related to things like the information we put up. If we put up like links, I had mentioned that we would put up some informational links for people, and I know that
Okay.
we've asked people not to light it up blue this month, but there are other organizations that, you know, would you like for your holistic allies to share that sort of stuff, or do you want them to be quiet and let you do the work?
I think if they're sharing things, like, I think what's important to me is that they're not just sharing things like to make themselves feel better. I think sharing things from autistic people or from autistic led organizations or things that basically don't use like Autism Awareness or Acceptance Month as a way to like promote yourself. Like if you're trying to promote that awareness and acceptance, that's one thing, but it's not it's not something to like build yourself up with, if that makes sense.
Right. So don't look for ally cookies.
Yes. Like there's no brownie points for sharing the autism memes, you know, like.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm actually through most of my questions. Tessa, did I miss any questions that you know of? Let me know if you see something. I really, just on a personal note, want to thank you guys so much for doing this, for taking the time, for talking to us, for being vulnerable, for having this idea to do this, because, you know, when I talked to you guys, it was like, we're going to try and be better about ableism related to the autistic community. And you guys all came on your Friday night and gave your own time to help other people. And I just I cannot express how grateful I am, because I'm not autistic. And it was really important to me that that your voices are here doing this. So thank you. We are going to share after this is posted and is no longer live, but you'll be able to come back and rewatch it, folks. We'll also add some resources in the comments, links to autistic-led organizations and organizations whose information has been helpful. I know that the One Bad Autistic group sent us, the Badman team, a letter that included a lot of links and references, and we want to make sure that we share that out. I am wondering if any of you guys have anything else you want to add in before we close for the evening. We're getting yes, thank you all in the chat. Nope. Okay, well, thank you. Oh, Yeller?
Oh, no, I was just going to ask, don't tag me in anything related to the video on Facebook, just as I'm friends with members who either don't believe me or don't know.
Oh, I couldn't hear the last part of that, your audio.
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you guys so much for spending your Friday evening with us. Thank you for helping the One Bad Mother members understand a little bit more about your lives and what you're asking, and how to help their family members and loved ones, and how to hopefully be better friends to your community. Thank you. We love you guys.
Thank you so much.
We love you.